This is the Whale Writer, a foldable, portable, and inexpensive writer deck. And this video is the build guide. Let's go over the materials you need to make this. First, we have all of our 3D printed components, which consists of this base plate, battery cover, locking plate, and screen bezel with holes for these 3 buttons. Next, we have the WaveShare RLCD module, which has an ESP32 chip baked into it. And to power this RLCD, we have an 18650 battery. Last but not least, we have the Bluetooth keyboard, which we will be completely disassembling, removing from this case. The first step will be to remove the keyboard from its case. The keyboard itself is attached via double-sided tape, meaning that we have to go in with either a spudger or, in my case, a flathead screwdriver. Work your way around the edge of the keyboard, making sure not to bend it in the process. Eventually, it should come loose, and the only attachment to the case will be this flex cable. Next, we'll unscrew this plastic bracket that holds the keyboard PCB in. Make sure you hold on to these screws, as we'll be using them later on in this build. Lift up on this flex, which is held down by double-sided tape. Now, we can pop the battery connector out and remove the entire PCB from the keyboard case. Carefully remove the battery from the case, making sure not to bend as you pull. Now that the keyboard is free from the case, we can begin the painstaking process of removing all the tape on the back of the keyboard. Grab the PCB and make sure that the power switch is set to the left. Insert the flex, fold over, and then tape down both the flex and the PCB with some Scotch tape. This is where the tutorial diverges. You can either use the battery from the keyboard, or if you have access to some tools, splice the wires and hook up the keyboard power input to the RLCD. If you're going to go the separate battery route, hook up the battery now. Otherwise, splice the power lines on the battery connector with 2 male DuPont cables. Next, we'll grab the 3D printed base and fold the print-in-place hinge. Slot the keyboard into the base. If you are using the separate battery method, you don't need to worry about feeding these wires into this hole. However, if you are using this design, make sure they get pulled through as the keyboard is slotted in. Make sure that the keyboard PCB and flex don't get caught on the back as you're sliding the keyboard in. Grab those 3 screws we saved from the keyboard PCB and attach the locking plate. These screws are very tiny, so be careful not to strip them. Flip the deck over, grab the RLCD, and install the 18650 battery. Make sure that you have the 4 mounting screws that come with the module. Position the RLCD underneath and screw in the top 2 screws. If you are using the spliced wires, bend the end of the jumpers 90 degrees and insert them into the ground and 3v3 sockets on the board. Place some tape over the connectors to keep them secure. Attach the back plate, making sure the tabs hook, and if using spliced wires, that they feed through the hole. Fasten it all together with the final 2 screws. Grab the bezel and insert the 3 buttons. Slide the bezel and the buttons onto the deck, making sure that the buttons don't fall out. And this is the completed writer deck. In regards to the software, I built this writer deck as a platform for others to develop on, as my strengths exist in the mechanical and hardware realm. I used Claude to code up a simple word processor as a test, and I don't really feel comfortable passing that off as my own work. I invite you to develop your own code and add to the repo, which can be found in the description. Thanks again for watching, and I hope this inspires you to go make something with your hands.